Hey, welcome to the Hudson Valley Tarot Podcast. I'm Amy, and today I'm following up with a video on this latest hashtag Tarot Anti-Bucket. I first saw it for Abundant Life Tarot posted a video on it, and her link is down below. And also Amy, who started this whole hashtag, her link is down below as well. Anyway, thank you for joining. I am also going to include a little section at the end, hashtag learning tarot, about tarot journaling. Because for me, that's like the most important thing you can do if you're learning tarot and you really want to take it seriously is you have to keep a journal of everything you've learned or you won't remember half of it. So that's what I'm going to be going over today, and I'll start with the hashtag anti-bucket list. So I've seen a lot of these, and some of them I'm like surprised. Wow, like how strongly people feel against something. Um, it's a little hard for me to come up with anything because I think I'm pretty open-minded when it comes to tarot, but I am a little picky when it comes to choosing a deck. Like I'll read with any deck, but I won't buy any deck, if that makes sense. So without further ado, let me go through my list. So one of the things, and it's almost like a pet peeve, one of the things that I just don't get into are these artistic decks that are created by people that are very obviously not artists. The artwork is not polished, it's not aesthetically beautiful, and I'm just not into that. If I'm going to use a deck, I want it to be beautiful, and if I'm going to buy a deck, it has to be beautiful, in my opinion. And everybody's opinion is different. But I really love the beautiful artwork, and I can't settle for something that's just amateur art. I like all different kinds of arts. Don't get me wrong. I like the digital art. I like watercolors. It doesn't all have to be made by artistic masterpiece or anything, but it just has to be pleasing to the eye. But yeah, number one for me is just the unappealing art. Second, so I brought some decks out to show you some examples, but I have my token Thoth Tarot, and I've read a few books on the Thoth Tarot, but I don't read with it much. I can read with it, but when I do, it's usually based on intuition and not really based on the Thoth teachings, right? And well, what's the reason? Well, I think that the Thoth Tarot is just beautiful. I think the artwork is beautiful. I know some people say it's not, but I don't know. I think they're crazy. I think Lady Frida's artwork is just amazing. I mean, really gorgeous and aesthetically beautiful. I can definitely read with it. It's just I don't. It's the thought system that I'm just don't have the time for, and it's mostly because I learned with the Rider-Waite tarot deck, and that's the system I learned, and that's kind of what I'm naturally inclined to use. So I'm not interested in learning a whole new system. I'm sticking to what works with me. So no Thoth Tarot for me. What's next on the list? We have, the comic booky art. And I'm going to go bold here and say, kind of like what you see on a lot of those Scarabeo decks. They are created by artists that are really good artists, but it just looks like everything is from a comic book. I brought an example that is not a low Scarabeo deck, but is the Supernatural deck. Doesn't that look comic booky? Like you're looking at a comic book on Supernatural, and um, this example of a deck is going to double up as another one of my anti-haul things. But I mean, it's not no bueno. Yeah, it's no good. While I can say that it's not terrible art, not by any means, but it is, it's just too much like a comic book. And I don't know why my aversion, but I just don't like it. So that is another one. No pit decks. So I have a lot of Marseille decks, and I do like them. And I find that interesting and fascinating. But I really don't read with them anymore. I stick to my illustrated pips, and I have a good sound knowledge of numerology and the elements and how it, goes into a reading. But I just like those illustrated pips. So I am not for the pip decks. And this deck here, this Supernatural deck, is a good example of also being a pip deck. So I bought this because I'm a Supernatural fanatic. All right, I love the Winchester brothers. But this deck, disappointment. Which leads me to another of my anti-haul. All these decks coming out based on TV series, really popular TV series, or movies that are like mass marketed and just popped out there trying to make money off of the popularity of the show. I'm done with that. I fell for it a few times. I'm not falling for it again because these decks are pretty useless. And if I want me a dose of Supernatural, I'll just go watch the show again. So, yeah, that's another thing I'm just totally done with. All right, let's see, what do we got? All right, I don't do Lenormand at all. I know it's wildly popular. And it's not that I'm uninterested. I have just made the decision that I'm going to stick to one system and do it well rather than learn multiple systems and do them okay. So Lenormand is basically a whole nother system to learn, a whole nother reading process. It's more predictive as well, and it doesn't allow for that, intuitive process to come out. So I decided to put my Lenormand books and decks on a shelf and leave them there. And I'm just all about tarot. Another thing that I just don't go for are animal themed decks. I don't resonate with this strong bond with spirit animals, or just not necessarily nature per se, but just like animal personalities or associations. I love this deck because it's beautiful, but when I see a picture of an owl, okay, I might think wisdom, but the hermit, I'm just not making the associations because I don't work with animals, right? Squirrels, all I think about are those nasty things that ruin my roof. Sloth, I think of my kids. I mean, so I really prefer humans in a deck. I don't mind a lot of animals or some animals, just not entirely animal deck. I do have two. The Brady Tarot is one of them, and the Northern Animal Tarot is another. But I don't use them much, and I'm not going to be buying any more of these animal-themed decks. Another thing on my anti-haul, and this might be actually kind of like a pet peeve, is I don't understand why some decks everyone has to be naked. I don't have any problem with people being naked in a tarot deck, like especially like the star card or the lovers or just a sexually or erotic themed deck. It makes sense. I don't need to see it when I'm reading tarot unless it's for a reason, right? So that kind of stuff, I kind of just don't bother with those decks. Another thing is I'm not Wiccan. I'm very spiritual and I'm very, I kind of relate to a lot of things that are Wiccan, but I am not a witch and I don't relate to a lot of the witchy themed decks, although I can appreciate them very much. Some of them are really beautiful, and but it's just not for me. So, and then finally, no more based on the hit series, and I kind of talked about that before when they put these decks out that are just based on a TV show that was wildly popular, and they're obviously just trying to make money because the artwork is pure. You could tell they just banged it out. They're all pip decks, and yeah, you could tell not much thought went into it. So that's kind of it for the anti-haul for me. It was kind of hard coming up with enough things that I just don't like because even all the ones I mentioned, there's always exceptions for me. So I don't ever rule anything out entirely. Like I'm really open-minded and I'll look through it and I'll decide if maybe something's an exception. The only thing that won't ever be an exception for me are these kind of things because I'm done wasting my money on that. I don't care how cheap they are. So that's it for deck anti-haul. Hey, so I was looking to get some feedback from you all. I have this idea that I might document my journey of building an online tarot business. Little history here is I used to have a pretty good tarot business when I lived in the Hudson Valley. I did, corporate parties, tarot parties, read at coffee shops, and had regular customers that I would read for. And I think around, I don't know, 2013 or so, I stopped doing all that and focused on other things in my life. But lately, and starting the beginning of this year, I have decided to start reading professionally again. And this time I'm doing it mostly virtually. Okay, I still do some live readings, but I have decided to launch an Etsy shop, and it's been quite a process learning all about it and how it works and what doesn't work and trying to, build a customer base again, and all of that stuff. Would you be interested in like hearing about all that in like separate videos? So I would keep it separate from, the other stuff I do, and it would be just like a day in the life as opposed to a how-to, but you could still learn a lot from it. And I guess that's the whole idea around it, is that maybe some of you are thinking about starting an online tarot business and you could just learn a lot from what I've already tried and what's worked, what hasn't worked, what's frustrating, what I wish I could change, all that sort of thing. Let me know if you'd be interested in that, because I don't know, I'm feeling like I want to talk about it. And I think it could be helpful to some people. But let me know if you're interested. All right, thanks. Put a comment below. Thank you. All right, now for me, the exciting part is to talk about tarot journaling. And I'll just put a plug in here and say, my last blog post was all about tarot journaling, and I hope you go check it out. I'll put a link in the comments below directly to the blog post. But I am a journaling fanatic. I kept a tarot journal since I first started learning tarot back in 2002, and 20 years later, I can absolutely say it's the best thing I've ever done as far as making myself a better tarot reader and just something that benefits me and that I can use here in the future. So I wanted to share with you some of the ways I journal. Now, I know there's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of great and fantastic stuff, but here's just a few things that I found really beneficial that was a way to journal, but also kind of really helped me understand the cards, not just memorize meaning, but understand them so that when I did do readings, the readings flowed more naturally because of a lot of these exercises I did. So the first thing I suggest is this card a day thing. A lot of people pull a card a day or, when they can, and they kind of read that card in the morning and see how it applies to the day or, anticipate the day based on that. And I never did that. I don't want to have a card come up and kind of set me up for something, right? I want to live my day as I see fit. So what I did is I would pull a card at the end of the day and I would hand pick that card. And I would just kind of, even like before I really knew the cards well, I would go through them and pick the one that visually stood out to me as a good representation of what the day was like for me. So I pulled out my Gaian Tarot, right? It's one of my favorite decks. And let's just say, for example, if I were to pull a card for today, let me see. So I would probably pull, I'm not going to go through it, and I know the cards pretty well. So I would probably pull, I'm looking for one in particular, this one, the Three of Air. So this is the card I would pull for today if I were, journaling about my day. The reason is I spent most of the day preparing for this podcast. I shouldn't call it podcast, this YouTube video. I did a lot of research. I wrote up a lot of things. I created some free downloads for you, which I'll talk about later. I did a lot of things that were just preparing, learning, and studious. So I would choose the Three of Air for today. And then maybe after I wrote about how I feel that this image resonates with my day today, I would also maybe pick up the book written by the author of the deck and see what their take on the card is and what were they thinking when they created this particular card. And this is a great way to learn the cards because especially if you're using one or two decks only to journal and read with, it's really important when you first start out. Because then when I do a reading with this deck and I see this card, I'll think about what I went through and how I felt today. And I'll have that association with this card. And on a totally different day, I might pull this for a totally different reason. And you can see how your understanding of the cards are just keep expanding just as you live your life, right? And it's just the personal association is just so good because and helps you really learn the tarot, know the tarot personally. So that is my first journal tip for you. This next tip is really more of a practical tip and not so much about learning, but I guess maybe it is. I'm going to just show you one of my journals, or two. I have a couple here. I pulled out a couple of my old journals, and I'm going to show you something I did that has been so helpful that you really have to do this. Here's one. This journal is from 2009. And I did this on all of my journals, even my first one. I give them a table of contents. All right. I list spreads. I have a section about courts and suits, and I have notes from a court card class there. I have specific readings I did for myself and for other people. I have a miscellaneous section where I different spreads I've learned and all classes I've taken, all that. And what this does is when I am looking for something to write about it or anything, I can find it easy because this is my first journal, by the way, 2002, little composition notebook. I was 36, guys. You could see I have so much stuff in here and I can find it all. If you have, I mean, I don't even know how many journals I have, but I would say 15 journals, maybe 10 to 15. Some are purely tarot journals, and I do keep separate ones just for readings, but they all have a table of contents and kind of broken out by different subjects that, kind of make sense. So I would just highly recommend this. You're going to really appreciate it because you're going to be able to find stuff and date them too. Date them so you know where like if you took a class or you want to find your notes from it, you can find it by the date. So that's my tarot tip number 2 for your tarot journal. Okay, so finally, I'm going to share with you how I structured my tarot journal when I first started learning and how I just studied each card so that I could learn it from all angles. And I'm going to give you an example. So, and this goes to the freebie for this that I created just for this video. I basically would pull a card. Here's a printout. I did this one. I wrote in, but I typed it up years ago, and I used it for a class that I taught live. I think it was back in 2009, if I remember. I can't remember. But it was an example of a tarot journal. And what I did in my tarot journal, I broke out nice and neatly here. But I would put the picture in there. Now you can easily print out a picture of the card and you can tape it or glue it into your journal. And if you download these, if you use a binder, you can put them in a binder. And in one section, you just describe the card. And like, for instance, in the download, I give you this example of the Chariot. So let's see what I wrote. So you kind of put in there, a young man stands on a chariot that is gray like stone. The sky and the wheels are yellow like gold. In the background is a city with a protective wall around it. Outside the wall is a lush green forest. Then we see a river or moat. These are all behind the charioteer. And it goes on, but you get the gist of it. So you just kind of describe the card. And you'll be really surprised that if you just describe the card, how much stuff comes out that you just normally wouldn't think of if you weren't looking for it. Okay, so then once you describe the card, pull out all the symbols that are really standing out to you at the time of your study. So for me, for the Chariot, I wrote, the first things that pop out at me is all the yellow in the card. The sky is yellow, and yellow, according to Sandra A. Thompson's Pictures from the Heart book, yellow symbolizes intellect, positive mental activity, awareness, blah, blah, blah. It goes on. And then I talk about the front of the chariot is decorated with wings and a kind of shield on top of it. In Pictures from the Heart, Sandra calls the shield a lingam, yani shield, and says it refers to the combining of opposites. So I would find the symbolism that kind of stood out for me, and I looked it up so that I could learn, because a lot of it I didn't know what it symbolized. So get yourself a good symbol dictionary and look up the stuff that's in the card that you're not sure about. And then, how does the card make you feel? Like the devil might creep you out, or you might see the Chariot and you might think, wow, that's pretty powerful and strong. But I wrote, leaving behind security and what you have become accustomed to in order to experience life and live for what you believe in, on and on. There's a lot more, but you get the gist of what you can kind of pull. And try and do this on your own at first, and then you can look at books and enhance what you write with more details from other books. And then once I did that, I did this thing where I kind of defined the card by different areas. And you can see in this little PDF that I put together, I put a little section for each area. But let me talk to you about what they are. So the mental angles of the card, how it relates to your thoughts and concepts. And then spiritual, how it relates to your drive, enthusiasm, and willpower. Emotional, which is how it refers to your emotions and feelings. Physical, how it relates to your material, financial well-being, and to your health. So you're probably figured out that's like all the suits. So from the perspective of the different suits, how would you interpret that card? I'll just give you a few examples. I just do like a sentence or two, not a lot. But like for the Chariot, under mental, I put staying focused, disciplining the mind, learning, not easily distracted. Okay, so that's emotional. I put very unemotional, having control over one's emotions, perhaps too much, not letting emotions get in the way of what you want. So just from all those different perspectives, you kind of give your interpretation of the cards. So after the first four with the suits, we go into soulful. So soulful is basically how it relates to your soul and its journey, or to your spiritual quest. Like for that, just as an example, just beginning of the soul's journey, preparation time is over, and now it's time to live life, to experience and grow so that the soul can grow. We have business. So how does it relate from your career or business perspective? Relationships. So if you were giving a relationship reading and this card came up, how would you interpret it? How would that apply to a relationship? I put kind of funny. Relationship? Who has time for a relationship? Who even cares? This could mean breaking ties with someone you may have been dependent on in the past. So again, you decide what it means to you. These are my interpretations. And then after the relationship, the next area is problematic. And this would be, what are the problematic aspects of the cards? And you can use this either if the card comes up reversed, or you can use it if the card is in a position of the spread that indicates it's not working in your favor, like what's blocking you, right? So that is the problematic, and of course the beneficial. If you get this card in an advice column, like where would you, what would you, how would you interpret it? So those are just a few of the things I've done in my journal. I mean, it's so much, but I created this as a free download. I'm going to put a link down below. Full disclosure, it's a link that you would give me your email. It's to sign up for a newsletter. and then you get to download this for free. But if you don't want to be on the newsletter, that's fine. It's absolutely fine. You can still get the download and then just unsubscribe. So no worries there, no pressure, but just full disclosure. So that's it. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this little section about tarot journaling. Check out the blog post on it. Again, that's going to be down below. The free download is down there. And I really hope you enjoyed it. And let me know in the comments if you did or didn't, or any suggestions you have for future topics. I'd love to hear. All right. Thanks again. Bye-bye.